Welcome back to Big Fish in the Middle Kingdom. I'm Brendan Davis, your host, and this is a special episode that I'm calling American Fish in Paris, where I am for less than 24 more hours. I fly out tomorrow back to Los Angeles, and I'll be back in China. The idea is we keep these fairly unedited, so I'm going to just roll with it. I get back in China early April. We haven't changed the ticket exactly. That's why I couldn't quickly hook into the actual date. I would say probably the beginning of the second week of April is when I'll be back in China. But I decided to record a special little episode today, mostly because I miss talking to you in this format. And, you know, there's some fun things kind of going on. It'd be nice to commemorate it. And honestly, it's nice to record in a new place. This place, I think, actually sounds pretty good. It's raining a little bit outside, and if I get really quiet, let's see if you hear any of that. Maybe. I don't know if I hear much of it, but depending on what you're listening on, you might. So this is kind of a general update, and as I've said before on this show, first of all, you know, the regularly scheduled Big Fish in the Middle Kingdom I've put on hiatus. I said kind of the series finale. I might have spoken too soon. I think I'll still come out and do a episode or two every month on Big Fish once I'm back in China, especially because I really do want to continue to interview interesting people that have that specific China angle. But as I've talked about on other episodes of this and elsewhere, I do have this new show that will sort of encompass some of those people as well while not having a specific China focus. But anyway, today, here's a little bit of a general update. What the heck am I doing in Paris? Well, it's besides popping on the microphone. Well, I've been here for a few reasons, but it's all related to movie development, my regular job as a film and TV person. And it's a longer story that I'll have a conversation with a few different film and TV people in LA. Once I'm back, I have a few to record for the new show where I'll get into some specifics about the changes in the China market. And there'll be a special, there'll be a Fretful Laowai with Kevin Geiger where I imagine we'll get into this once I'm back in China, especially maybe before if we can coordinate it on Skype. But we really like to do those things in person. So the bottom line is that although I am still, you know, personally, emotionally, and a little bit financially invested in being in China, and I really believe in my friends and the people who I know and work with and the talent, the technical talent, the creative talent. And I love being there as, you know, China is going through this new period and coming up on the world stage. By the same token, it's really, really hard to do what I do there, meaning the film and TV things and stuff that are my skills that have, you know, previously bought me houses or, you know, kept food on the table are not things that are easy for me to do there because, you know, I'm not Chinese, I'm not fluent in the language, and there's enough local talent to do those things. And so that era of the foreign expert or even the foreign semi-expert sort of being able to, you know, really write their own ticket in China, those days are long gone. And so it's a new era. And, you know, my development has been focused offshore, meaning not in mainland China. So that's why I'm here. So back to the reason I'm in Paris. So developing this movie, there is a film that I've been involved with that I've talked about a little bit here and there, but I guess it's time to finally discuss it because we're finishing up a piece of the project and moving into the next. I helped develop this feature project called My Favorite Season that's set in the world of fashion with my friend, the writer-director Larry Sullivan, who has had some success with his scripts, but he is a new director. And so basically the short version of a long story is to be able to prove to various people we needed to do a short first. And so we did it in LA and we doubled interiors. We faked it as Paris. The short, like the feature, is set in Paris. And so we are purchasing some stock footage shots of exterior Paris to establish the world. And then the interiors were all shot in LA. And we have a locked offline cut right now, which means it's not the one that's the final color and sound and whatnot, but the actual edit is the edit. And so we're really happy with it. I don't want to go on about it too much right now. I'll say more about that shortly, but it's to set up this feature project and to make various people happy, you know, various casting and talent people and some finance people to demonstrate that our director can direct, and he did a great job. So we've been in Paris as part of the development of this, where now the short film has been shot and our editor in LA was cutting it. Fortunately, I did not cut this one. I was very happy to be able to turn that over to somebody for a change. My friend Ben Rock did a wonderful job editing the film, and I'll have more to say about that as we kind of roll it out. But so we have been here to develop the feature film and hire our local side producer, and attended fashion shows during Paris Fashion Week because Larry's actually fairly wired into that world and was able to get us into a lot of good shows. And our cinematographer, Naeem Sarafi, came over, so he was able to see that world and have a real inside sense of how he would design and light it in terms of the camera shots and the lighting. And, it was just really great. It was so much fun and met a lot of really interesting people. And I had a lot more fun for a guy who's not into fashion at all. I've gotten sort of this crash course and I've just really enjoyed being around it. My fashion style is still basically a Plaster Date t-shirt and Levi's and whatever comfortable shoes I'm wearing. So, I'd like to think I don't look like I just rolled out of bed all the time, but, the world of fashion is definitely not where I live day to day. But we met a lot of great people. We scouted practical locations as well as sound stages. One of the highlights of the trip is that we were able to tour the atelier, which I've learned that's the fancy word for the design studio for a designer. And we were able to tour the atelier, the private atelier. It's not part of a public thing that you can go check out. But our local producer knows Jean-Paul Gaultier, legendary designer. And so we were able to get in and see his inner sanctum where they do all their magic. He was not there that day, so we could not meet him, but we got to meet his number 2 and 3 people, and they were very generous to show us around. It's unbelievable. We took pictures that we have as reference for production design for the film, but the deal was that we would not publish those, so I can't show you those pictures. But wow, it's pretty amazing. But we saw some pretty cool things like that. It's very special backstage at some of these fashion shows and talking to designers, and just really had a lot more fun than you should be allowed to have as you're actually working, but we were working. But in terms of the logistics of all of this, we were here and we were very focused to do this. We had planned for 3 weeks originally. We had our return tickets set for March 15th. And being on a really tight budget, we were motivated to get things done really, really fast. We had done a fundraise, a friends and family fundraise to make the short in addition to private funds that Larry had. And then basically he cash flowed this trip. So we were really trying to stretch a dollar, and we did it. And we got everything done in 2 weeks. We were so focused, and we also had some lucky breaks about being able to schedule some things back to back to back. So we got our 3 weeks worth of work done within 2 weeks, which was great. But there was one wrinkle, and that wrinkle is that both Larry and Naeem were able to change their tickets and return a week early. But my ticket turned out was not changeable. So a little short solo vacation in Paris. Yes, please. We moved out of the big Airbnb that we had where all of us stayed. And, I moved into like a small little apartment that's actually more in the heart of Paris, which is really great. And yes, I hear that pop occasionally. Sorry about that. But, it's been really awesome. Some of the highlights for me have included seeing the Rodin Museum. We have a new friend. It's a friend of Naeem's, a new friend of ours. He's one of the, I'll say curator for lack of trying to get into more of a detailed explanation for his exact role, but he's sort of part of there's a word for this that I don't know, but the people who help, basically the person who's, like one of the experts at a museum who, he doesn't oversee the entire thing, but he helps to design and curate, and he's knowledgeable. So I just say a curator. But he is a very nice guy, Jean-Baptiste Chantoiseau. I'm mangling his last name. But he was nice enough to give me a private tour of the Rodin Museum the other day. And I've also been trying to get to know Paris a little bit better. I've been riding the metro when it's convenient and walking a lot and kind of finding where I'm based here, finding my quote-unquote neighborhood grocery store, and making food at home when I could. And I've been out a little bit, but I've been trying to live as much like a local as I can to just really feel like I'm connected to this place, and it's been really great. If you actually follow my social media, you have seen in the previous few weeks what looks like a veritable orgy of consumption in terms of nice food or places we've been and traveled and eaten. Although it's actually all been on a budget. It's France, so it all looks fancy, right? But I've actually only eaten out one time since I made the move. That was last night, and I've really been saving my personal funds to get a few gifts. And I think I will have a very happy girlfriend when I get back to Beijing, I hope. And I got a little something for myself. It cost less than $40. So I think I did a pretty good job of managing my own finances. But I may be limping back to Beijing in early April by the time I'm done with all this and this LA trip. I may just have the change in my pocket. But it has been a really great 2019 so far, and I am not complaining. So getting back to the podcast here, I think what I'm going to do is try to do a new Big Fish in the Middle Kingdom at least every other weekend, possibly once a week when I'm back in China. And I especially want to do the Fretful Outlaw Radio Hour with Kevin Geiger every month. And I know he would like to do that. So we just have to see how things work out once I'm actually back before I can hard commit to anything. But that is the goal. I really enjoy this show. And the thing that's hard is doing a China focus show when you're not in China. So I already have that challenge with how China works with Ying Li. And that's part of why we've been doing sort of one-on-one interviews where one of us interviews somebody. It's been all her, actually. I've had a few lined up that have not happened because of scheduling stuff, but we've had to switch to that format a bit, and it kind of works. We would rather have somebody in the same room. So if one of us can physically be in the room with a guest and can have that conversation, it's so much better because, versus Skype, just because of the technological limitations, we usually can't do a video Skype with people because it just takes up too much bandwidth. And with somebody being in China, Skype is pretty squeezed. And yes, there are alternatives, but this applies to Zoom or the other things I'm talking about. It just doesn't seem to work as well once you turn video on. And I think everybody's probably familiar with this, right? If you've been talking to somebody who's in a distant location. So as I'm saying, the challenges of doing a really good show when it's all remote and when it's three people in different locations, it's really something. And, we haven't actually been thrilled with how we've had a few test cases that we have not released, frankly, for that reason, because it just wasn't able to have the same level of kind of interaction that we want, that makes a show worth listening to. And so we're working to figure this out. But Ingy and I will catch up on some dual interviews in person with people once I'm back in China. And I should be back in China at least a couple of months, depending on how long this feature development takes and takes me back here, which would be pretty great. But so for now, let me say a few more things about France. Now, the takeaways from my admittedly very short time here include, first of all, just how friendly most people I met were. There are these old stereotypes of rudeness, actually, that are, kind of pretty outdated in my present experience here. And yes, I know I have the, middle-aged white guy privilege, whatever the hell that means. And that's in different contexts. It means everything or it means nothing. But here, I think it's somewhat in the middle of the road. I would say that in terms of people who just really had a sour disposition, maybe 2 or 3 times out of 200 or 300 interactions I've had with all kinds of people. And that's just a rounding error, right? 1%. Come on. That's better than I get most other places. I think you just notice it when you're traveling. But for the most part, I've met some really, at least minimally courteous and friendly to very nice and gregarious and awesome people. But as much as I do love it here, I'm also really looking forward to getting back to LA. We have to finish up the short film and then shift gears fully into the feature development. We're already sort of there. And, this short is going to hopefully have a life of its own on the festival circuit. That's kind of the goal with this, and I'll have more about that. Once there's news to share, I'll talk a little bit more about it. But in terms of fulfilling the main goal, we feel like we hit a home run, honestly. It validates our concept. It really demonstrates the director's talent, and it shows our core team's competency in different ways. So we just really feel grateful and very fortunate about how it's turned out. Now, in the meantime, we are contemplating having a private cast and crew and friends screening for the short film on Friday, March 29 in LA. Our day that we do our final mastering is March 28th. And so we are planning to have a screening in Los Angeles for cast and crew and friends of friends. And I think we will probably have room for a few more people. So, these screening rooms that you rent, some of them can be tiny. you either basically have a room for 20 people or you have a room that's like a movie theater. And so 20 people is not enough. So we probably have to have a room that's closer to a movie theater size, and that will seem pretty empty. We had a decent sized cast and crew, but if we have 40 people and if they all came and all brought a +1, we still have a fairly empty theater. So if you want to attend the private screening of the short film version of My Favorite Season in Los Angeles, March 29th, you can message me on the social medias or via the contact page on any of my websites and let me know. And so no promises, because again, this is not set in stone, but I will see what we work out in terms of a screening room and our RSVPs from cast and crew. And it would be really fun to have a few non-combatants attend this and enjoy it, hopefully enjoy it with no prior knowledge of the film. So in other news, Carl King. Carl is the composer of the theme music on this show, and he was my very last regular guest that I had before I went on this sort of extended hiatus. Carl has been super, super busy with his own projects, and I'll talk about Carl here in a moment, but he is working on theme music for my new show, which I'm also going to release March 29th. So more on that in just a second. So Carl has got a few interesting things going on. He has a animated show called The Oracle of Outer Space that I was happy to help support on Kickstarter a little bit. And he is finishing that up. He's debuting it. There's a WonderCon down in Anaheim, actually that same day, March 29th. So this date has got a lot of resonance for a few different reasons, coincidentally, or maybe not. But he's going to be there with some of his talent. And he has this really interesting cast of characters. I would suggest you check out carlkingdom.com. I think it's so cool that you can have that. His name's Carl King, so Carl Kingdom. I think that's a pretty cool name for a website. I've always enjoyed that. But if you go to his website, you can see what's going on. That's a really cool project. He's going to be announcing his new project there. And he's also working on some music. So I'm excited to have my theme music. He's finishing up his mastering of his project right now. So I think I'm the next priority in the shoot. We actually talked yesterday for a good while. And I was also a guest. Carl does a sort of irregular podcast, both in terms of schedule and in terms of topic and the range of guests, which is fun. And I think it's just called the Carl King Podcast at this point. But I'm a guest. We recorded when I was back in LA. We recorded about a month ago, I think. Probably about a week and a half after he was a guest on my show, we recorded one where I'm on his. And I'll be really curious to hear that, because he just kind of got me started on different topics, and I talked for 5 minutes, and he, change the subject or add to that, and I'd talk for 5 more minutes. And so, at the time, I had a good time talking with Carl, but I realized it sounded like I just talked nonstop for an hour. I'm proving that I could do that occasionally, right? So I think it'll be kind of fun, but no pressure, but I'll let you know when that's out. So going back to that March 29th date, there are a few different funny coincidences here. So first of all, in terms of the short film, there's nothing magic about it other than the time that it takes to do all the different things, right? We have to do our composer, Emmanuel Arnone, is writing the music. Then our sound designer will be picking it up and doing the dialogue editing and the sound design. And then we have to have the mix, and then we have to do the final color correction that Naeem is overseeing at eFilm in Los Angeles, which is amazing. But the timing of all this, basically March 28th is the day by which everything can be done. And so we just pick that by, okay, how long do we need to do this? How long do we need to do that? What's our schedule? What's our budget? So the 29th is just, it's the next day. It buys us an extra day. And it's a Friday. Friday evening is probably a good time to ask people to come check things out. Of course, if our crew is working, they're probably in the middle of their work day. If they're working on a shoot and it started in days as a day shoot on Monday morning, and then shoots kind of tend to push the call time back as you go through the week. So unfortunately, some of our crew may be in the middle of a day on a set somewhere and can't attend. But, that's kind of the best date, all things being equal. The next day we go, and by we, it's me and the writer-director and our cinematographer. We're going to head up back to Northern California, to NorCal. And we have some friends and investors in the Silicon Valley and San Francisco areas, really specifically. So we're going to have 2 screenings up there in NorCal as well. So if you're listening, if you're in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, Santa Cruz kind of area, same thing applies. If you might like to attend a screening up there, we're talking about probably the 30th, 31st in San Francisco, and possibly April 1st, and that's no fooling, no April Fool's joke, probably April 1st in Santa Cruz, of all places, because we have one of our investors and a really great friend of our writer-director is based in Santa Cruz, and that's a great place. We just are looking forward to visiting there. So back to that March 29th date, there is a relationship that matters kind of mostly to me, so I'll share this for a few different reasons. First, I thought it would be significant in terms of releasing this new podcast of mine on March 29th. There are a few reasons I thought it would be interesting to do that. I thought it would be significant, first of all, to mark that date by having both the short film and the new podcast debut on the same day. So there's that. And also, on a practical level, I mentioned the timeline of the film stuff being wrapped up and being able to screen on that day. In terms of the new podcast, I have several interviews in the can. I've got about a dozen to record in the next few weeks that I have to schedule, but I'm not going to have all the elements I need, such as this new score from Carl, and also the new graphics package from my friend and art wizard and recent TEDx talker, Ronald Paredes. I won't have all those elements until roughly then, and I need all those things in place before I can put together a course and launch it. What I was just mentioning about Ronald is he just did a TEDx talk where he was talking about the nature of creativity. And from what I've seen of it, of his slides and photos, I haven't been able to listen to it yet, but what I've seen of it, it looks really great. Ronald has a wonderful podcast himself called Creativity Roots, where he gets really thoughtful about the nature of creativity and what it means and just the implications of this to people and in society. And it's thoughtful and thought-provoking, and he does research, and he understands and talks about neuroscience as well as more ephemeral things like artistic influence and inspiration, but he's actually talking nuts and bolts and how things are firing in people's brains to make them creative and how to enhance this and what limits it. So he has really interesting range of guests. So I encourage you to check out Creativity Roots. But basically between Carl's score and Ronald's art and my own schedule, the 29th is basically as soon as I think we can have all the elements. So there's this practical matter that I just don't have the time myself to do all the behind the scenes things that I have to do before then, including a total revamp of my website. That is part of the process. I want to really remake crazyinagoodway.com. It'll have basically all the same information, but I really need to update it. I want it to be like an all-in-one hub for my film and TV work as well as for the podcasting stuff. And to have it be, sort of a reference for anything I want to put out into the world. I want to be able to have kind of a page or a channel on that site where I do it. And it just really needs some work. I need to redo it. And so I'm planning to do that this next week when I'm back in LA. And the last reason for now, in terms of March 29th as the date to launch the podcast, as well as the short film, this is a little bit of a woo-woo note. So I'll throw this out there for my more esoterically minded or curious friends. It has been years since my good friend and astrological wizard, writer, and astrologer Austin Coppock and I have lived in the same space-time to be able to hang out. When he and his then girlfriend, now wife Caitlin, first came to Los Angeles, I was the first person who met them there. They knew my friend Chris Sanders remotely, and we were friends from the internet back in the MySpace days. But we were very early friends when they first started exploring living in LA, and then when they moved, and then they moved back to Portland. It's a long story, but it's been a long time since we were able to sort of hang out, and he's incredibly busy. And if you're at all interested in astrological type things, you would possibly know his name, but he's very busy. So even a beginner astro nerd, though, knows that you don't launch a new project or venture during Mercury retrograde. So March 29th is the day that Mercury stations direct in the Western Hemisphere. So there might be a little extra oomph behind any projects that you launch that day. That's in theory. So regardless of your level of interest or, quote unquote belief in such things, there is a lot of metaphorical wisdom that I've learned from studying this. And it's been really fun and helpful to examine things with this lens, So bottom line is, I guess we'll find out if March 29th has any special magic powers for us. It can't hurt, right? There's no reason anyway, but the schedule is dictated because of a lot of other reasons. And then that happens to be in sync. So I thought, that's kind of fun. All right, look, it is 11:41 a.m. Thursday in Paris. I have this one last day and night here, so I had better get this posted and get packed. I've got to wash laundry and pack. Don't forget you can contact me any of the ways that you might otherwise like to on the socials, on the crazyinagoodway.com or howchinaworkspodcast.com websites. There's a contact form, and I get those. If you hit contact and submit these forms, it comes to me. So also you can just directly email me if you have it with any thoughts, comments, criticisms, or offers. I can't refuse. If you have some kind of gig I should be curious about, or a consulting opportunity or something, any way to make some money, pad the nest, or if I could just help, I'm happy to do that as well with limited time spent. Don't forget that this week's How China Works, it's a really good one. And yes, it's my show, but I feel like I can promote it, especially when I'm not doing the interview. Ying Li interviewed well-known comedic actor Mike Sway. He is star of the recent Chinese science fiction smash hit film, The Wandering Earth. I think it's number 1 right now as I record this still. This is a especially good episode. Mike is not only funny, and if you know his work from online or from his film stuff, you have got some understanding of this. He's done a lot of videos that went very viral of him playing a lot of different characters, but he's a very thoughtful guy, and he himself is like half Chinese, half American, straddles it all, and he sort of embodies the whole podcast in one person. So it's a really good episode, and Ying did a great job with getting into a thoughtful conversation with him. So if that's your cup of tea, check it out. Thank you for listening. I will be wheels up this time tomorrow, Paris time. As I record this, I'll be in the air, so wish me luck. I don't think I'm in one of those max 8 or 9s. So I will hopefully and metaphorically see you again soon from Los Angeles. Thanks for listening.